For 25 years, my mother-in-law tried to break me. The day she took my home in court, she laughed like she had won the lottery. She thought I was broken. She thought she had taken everything. But what she didn't know was that my husband had left me a weapon, a secret that would destroy her. She laughed, but I had the last laugh. This is my story. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, has a laugh that could curdle milk. It's a high, thin, brittle sound, like glass shattering on a marble floor. I'd heard that laugh 1,000 times over the years, always directed at me, always a weapon meant to cut me down to size. But in the sterile, suffocating silence of the courtroom, as I scrawled my signature on the final document that signed away the home my husband and I had built together, that laugh was different. It was triumphant. It was the victory cry of a woman who believed she had finally, utterly, and completely broken me. I, Amelia, sat there, my hand trembling slightly as I pushed the document back across the polished wood of the table. The pen, a cheap, government tissue plastic thing, felt heavy and foreign in my fingers. I could feel the weight of 52 years in my bones, the ghosts of memories clinging to the very air I breathed in that room. The house wasn't just a building of wood and brick to me. It was the echo of my children's first steps, the stage for 1,000 Thanksgiving dinners, the sanctuary where my husband, Daniel, had taken his final breath. And I had just signed it away. To her. To the woman who had never, for a single moment in the 25 years I'd been married to her son, considered me good enough. The judge's gavel came down with a sound that felt like a bullet to the heart. "So ordered," he said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. He was just doing his job. He didn't know the history. He didn't know the years of subtle poison, the whispered critiques, the way she had slowly, methodically, worked to position herself between Daniel and me. To him, it was just another property dispute, a messy family squabble that had found its way into his courtroom. Evelyn, perched on the other side of her legal team like a queen on a throne, was the picture of serene victory. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my car. Her silver hair was coiffed to perfection. She looked every bit the wealthy, refined matriarch she always believed herself to be. She didn't even look at me, her eyes scanning the document as if to ensure every I was dotted and every T was crossed. But I didn't need her to look at me. I could feel the satisfaction radiating from her, a palpable heat in the chilly air. Her lawyer, a shark with a pinstriped suit and a condescending smirk, leaned in and whispered something to her. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. My lawyer, a young, earnest man named Ben who had fought valiantly but ultimately in vain, put a comforting hand on my arm. "Amelia," he started, his voice low and apologetic. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could." She was just too well prepared. I simply nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat was constricted by a knot of emotions I couldn't untangle. Sorrow, certainly. A devastating, bone-deep grief for the life that had just been stolen from me. But beneath it, coiled tight and hot in my stomach, was something else. A strange, electric anticipation that had nothing to do with the court's ruling. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. Evelyn finally stood, smoothing down her skirt. She turned to me then, her gaze sweeping over me like I was a stain on her expensive shoes. She waited until her lawyer and mine were deep in a quiet discussion about the mechanics of the transfer before she approached me. "Well, Amelia," she said, her voice dripping with a pity so false it was almost a parody. "I truly am sorry it had to come to this. It was never my intention to take the house from you, but Daniel was my son, and as his mother, I have a responsibility to protect his legacy. I'm simply ensuring it stays in the family." I looked up at her. I let her words hang in the air for a moment, letting her believe her victory was absolute. Her eyes, a cold, pale blue, stared down at me, waiting for the tears, the pleading, the final shattering of my spirit that she'd been waiting a quarter of a century to see. "It's all right," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I was amazed at my own composure. She blinked, momentarily thrown off by my lack of a breakdown, but she recovered quickly. "It was the right thing to do," she insisted, as if trying to convince herself. "I'm going to turn it into a foundation for underprivileged youth in Daniel's memory. You'll see, it will do more good for the world than it ever did with you just living in it." The audacity of her statement was breathtaking. She was going to take my home, the home I had loved and nurtured, and turn it into a monument to her own generosity. She was going to erase me from it completely. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated anger, but I controlled it. I had to. The final, delicious phase of my plan was just beginning. "You know, Evelyn," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, so only she could hear. "You've been waiting for this day for a long time. You finally got what you wanted." Her thin lips tightened. "I got what was rightfully Daniel's," she corrected me. "Daniel," I repeated, letting the name hang in the air between us. It was a fragile memory, a precious thing she had never deserved to own. He had loved me, truly loved me, in a way that had always baffled and infuriated her. He had chosen me, a simple girl from a small town, over her grand visions of a suitable society wife. It was a wound that had festered for a quarter of a century, and today she believed she had finally lanced it. I slowly rose from my chair, my knees feeling weak. I was a little taller than her, and I looked down into her triumphant face. "I loved him more than you could ever imagine," I said, "and I knew him better than you ever did." She scoffed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Don't be ridiculous, Amelia. I am his mother." "Yes," I agreed, a strange, sad smile finally touching my lips. "You are, and that's why he had to protect what was most important to him. From you." Her smile faltered, just for a second. A flicker of confusion crossed her features. "What are you talking about?" I leaned in closer, so close I could smell her expensive, cloying perfume. It smelled like old money and cold entitlement. "You think this is a victory for you, Evelyn. You think you've won. But all you've done is buy yourself a very expensive headache." "That's nonsense," she snapped, her composure cracking. "I have the deed, the house is mine." I didn't answer her. Instead, I simply reached into my purse and pulled out a single, folded piece of paper. It was old, the edges worn and soft. I held it up so she could see it, but I didn't let her take it. It was just a glimpse, a tease. "What is that?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "This," I said, my voice dropping to an intimate, conspiratorial murmur, "is the truth. It's what Daniel knew, and it's what he left for me. He left me with his love, Evelyn, and he left you with a legacy you never expected." Her face paled. The triumphant flush drained away, leaving her looking old and uncertain. "You're lying," she hissed. "You're just trying to make a scene." I shook my head. "I'm not making a scene. I'm just telling you goodbye. Enjoy your new house. You're going to need all the comfort it can offer." And then I turned my back on her. It was the single most empowering moment of my entire life. For the first time in 25 years, I was walking away from her, not as a victim, but as a survivor. I could feel her eyes burning into my back, her mind racing, trying to piece together what I meant. I heard her call my name, her voice sharp and demanding, but I didn't stop. I walked out of the courtroom, the echo of my heels on the polished floor sounding like a drumbeat of liberation. My lawyer, Ben, caught up to me in the hallway. His face was a mixture of sympathy and confusion. "Amelia, what was that all about?" he asked. "I know you're upset, but you need to be careful. She's vindictive. She could try to have you held in contempt for something." I stopped walking and turned to him. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me, and for the first time, I felt the sting of tears in my eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release. "I'm fine, Ben," I said, my voice thick. "I'm more than fine. You did a wonderful job. I couldn't have asked for a better lawyer." "But we lost," he said, his brow furrowed. "She got the house." I took a deep, shuddering breath and clutched the piece of paper in my hand. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could I explain to him the 25 years of silent war, the slow, methodical erosion of my self-worth, the constant, grating, condescending presence of that woman in my life? How could I explain the bond I shared with Daniel? A bond so strong it had survived his death, and was now being used as a weapon from beyond the grave. "She doesn't know what she's done," I finally managed. "She's so focused on what she thinks she's taken from me, she didn't see what she was taking for herself." Ben looked at me, utterly bewildered. "I don't understand." I gave him a watery smile. "Don't worry about it. Just keep the check I gave you, the one for the retainer fee. Don't give it back to me. You earned it. You have no idea how much." I didn't wait for a response. I walked away from him, too. My car was parked a few blocks away. The late afternoon sun was warm on my face, a stark contrast to the cold, sterile atmosphere of the courthouse. As I walked, I unfolded the piece of paper. It wasn't an official document. There were no legal seals or stamps. It was just a letter. A personal, heartfelt, handwritten letter from my husband. I had read it 1,000 times since he died. It was my comfort, my guide, my weapon. The letter was written on simple cream-colored stationery, the kind Daniel always favored. His handwriting was neat but slightly shaky, a reminder of the illness that had been slowly stealing him from me. I had memorized every word, every curve of every letter. But holding it again, in the aftermath of that courtroom battle, felt like holding his hand one last time. My dearest Amelia, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I know you've been dreading this day, and I'm so sorry I couldn't stay longer. But I need you to know something. Something I should have told you years ago. Something I was too ashamed and too scared to share. I'm not who you think I am. I'm not who anyone thinks I am. I was adopted, Amelia. My parents, Evelyn and Albert, they raised me, and I love them for that. But they are not my biological parents. I found out the truth a few years ago, and it has haunted me ever since. My birth mother's name is Patricia. She was young and scared and alone when she had me. The man who fathered me was rich and powerful, and he abandoned her the moment he learned she was pregnant. He used his money and influence to have her sent away, to a home for unwed mothers, where I was born and then given up for adoption. I tracked Patricia down. She's a good woman, Amelia. She didn't want to disrupt my life. She just wanted me to know the truth. She wanted me to know that I was loved. But that's not the worst of it. The worst part is who my biological father is. His name is Richard Sterling. Yes, that Richard Sterling, the senator, the man who is one of the most powerful figures in the city, the man who has built his entire career on family values and moral rectitude. He's a hypocrite, Amelia. He abandoned my mother. He abandoned me. And he's been living a lie his entire life. I can't confront him. I can't expose him. I'm too tired and I don't have the strength. But I'm leaving you something. I'm leaving you the truth. I'm leaving you the power to decide what to do with it. The house we live in, the one my mother loves so much, it's not really hers. It's not even really mine. It's tied to a trust, a secret trust that I set up with the help of a man named Vincent. He's a lawyer, a good one. He helped me set it up when I first started making real money. He's the only one who knows the full truth. The trust is funded by a deal I made with Richard Sterling. He didn't know who I was when we made it. He still doesn't know. I approached him as a businessman, and we made a deal that was mutually beneficial. But part of that deal involved a property, a piece of land that he wanted to keep hidden. I bought it, and I put it in the trust. The house, our house, is tied to that trust. If anyone tries to claim it, the trust will be activated. And when it is, everything will come out. Richard Sterling's secret will be exposed. My mother's greed will be exposed. Everything. I know my mother, Amelia. I know she will try to take the house from you when I'm gone. She's always resented you, always thought you weren't good enough for me. She'll do everything she can to destroy you. But I've given you a way to fight back. I've given you the truth. Use it. Protect yourself. Protect our home. And if you can, protect Patricia too. She's been through so much. I love you, Amelia, more than words can say. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. You gave me a family. You gave me a home. And you gave me a love I never thought I deserved. I'm sorry I have to leave you, but I know you're strong. I know you'll survive. With all my love always. Daniel. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in my purse. My hands were shaking, but my heart was steady. Daniel had given me a gift more precious than any house or any fortune. He had given me the truth. And with that truth, I had the power to destroy the woman who had spent 25 years trying to destroy me. That night, I sat in my small apartment, staring at the walls. It was a far cry from the beautiful home I had shared with Daniel, but it was mine. It was safe, and it was the place where my plan would unfold. I had been preparing for this moment for months. Even before Daniel died, I had known that Evelyn would try to take everything from me. She had never approved of me, never accepted me as part of her family. She saw me as an outsider, a gold digger who had somehow seduced her beloved son. She couldn't understand that Daniel had chosen me because he loved me, not because of anything I could give him. She couldn't understand that he saw something in me that she never could: strength. I had started making preparations the day Daniel was diagnosed. I had opened a secret bank account in my own name. I had made copies of all the important documents. I had hired a private investigator to track down Patricia, Daniel's birth mother. And I had found Vincent, the lawyer who had helped Daniel set up the trust. Vincent was a man in his 60s, with a sharp mind and a quiet demeanor. He had been Daniel's friend, his mentor, his confidant. He had helped Daniel navigate the complex world of business and finance, and he had helped him set up the secret trust that would protect our home. When I first contacted Vincent after Daniel's death, he had been wary. He didn't know me. He didn't know if he could trust me. But when I showed him the letter Daniel had left me, his eyes had filled with tears. "He loved you very much," Vincent had said. "He told me about you. He said you were the strongest person he had ever known. I can see why." We had worked together to prepare for the battle. Vincent had gathered all the documents related to the trust. He had reached out to Patricia and secured her cooperation, and he had set up a series of legal time bombs that would detonate the moment Evelyn tried to claim the house. It had taken months of careful planning, but it had been worth it. I had watched Evelyn's legal team file their claim. I had watched them present their case in court, and I had watched them win. They had no idea that they were walking into a trap. They had no idea that the very document they had presented to the judge was about to trigger a scandal that would destroy them all. The first sign that something was wrong came a few days after the court ruling. Evelyn's lawyers tried to take possession of the house. They arrived at the property with a locksmith and a moving van. They had the court order. They had the deed. They thought it was a simple matter of changing the locks and moving in. But they were stopped cold. Vincent had anticipated their move. He had hired a team of private security guards to monitor the property. When the lawyers and the locksmith arrived, they found the gates locked and the guards refusing to let them in. "I'm sorry, ma'am," one of the guards said, "but we have strict orders from the trust. No one is allowed to enter the property without authorization from the trustee." The lawyer, a slick-haired man in an expensive suit, had been furious. "This is outrageous," he had shouted. "We have a court order, we have the deed, you have no right to stop us." The guard had simply shrugged. "Take it up with the trustee." The lawyer had tried to get in touch with the trustee, but Vincent had made sure that his contact information was nearly impossible to find. The trust was a fortress designed to protect the assets within it, and the assets within it were not just the house. They were the secret of Richard Sterling's paternity, the secret of Daniel's biological father. Evelyn had not expected any resistance. She had been so confident in her victory that she had already started planning the renovations. She had been going through catalogs, picking out new furniture, dreaming of the lavish parties she would throw. The house was her trophy, her proof that she had finally won. When she heard about the security guards, she was livid. She called her lawyers and demanded they fix the situation. She called the court and demanded they enforce the ruling. She even called me, hoping to intimidate me into backing down. But I didn't answer her calls. I let them go to voicemail, where I could listen to her increasingly frantic messages. "Amelia, it's Evelyn. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it's over. The house is mine. You need to call off these guards. You're only making things worse for yourself. Amelia, I know you're listening to these messages. This is ridiculous. You're going to regret this. I will destroy you if I have to. Amelia, please, I'm trying to be reasonable here. We can work something out, just call me." I smiled every time I heard her voice. It was the smile of someone who had finally, after years of suffering, found a way to fight back. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose. The legal battle went on for weeks. Evelyn's lawyers tried everything they could think of. They filed motions and appeals. They went back to court and tried to get a restraining order against the security guards. They even tried to sue Vincent directly. But the trust was watertight. Daniel had designed it to be unbreakable, and Vincent had spent years making sure that every legal loophole was closed. The pressure began to build on Evelyn. She was used to getting what she wanted. She had grown up in a world where her money and status could solve any problem. But this time, she had met her match. The stress took a toll on her. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she was losing sleep. She was snapping at her lawyers. She was drinking more than usual. The cracks were beginning to show. And then the first press release appeared. It was a small story, buried in the back pages of the city's business section, but it was the first domino to fall. Prominent local property tied to mysterious trust was the headline. The article was careful and restrained, the work of a journalist who had been given just enough information to be intrigued, but not enough to write a full exposé. It mentioned the trust, the dispute, and the involvement of an anonymous family. Evelyn's name wasn't mentioned, but in the closed circles of the city's elite, everyone knew who the anonymous family was. The second press release was more direct. It was a leak from someone inside the legal system, a clerk who had seen the documents from the trust case. The story was picked up by a gossip columnist, someone who had no interest in protecting the wealthy and powerful. "Secret Trust Hides Shocking Truth About Local Family" was the headline. The story mentioned Daniel's adoption. It mentioned the mysterious biological father. It didn't name Richard Sterling. Not yet. But it was enough to start the rumor mill. The whispers began to spread through the city. Who was the biological father? Why had he been kept secret? What was Evelyn hiding? What did she know? Evelyn tried to fight back. She issued a denial through her lawyers. She called the columnist and threatened to sue for libel. She tried to get the story killed. But it was too late. The rumors had already taken on a life of their own. I watched the news with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. On one hand, I was finally getting the revenge I had been waiting for. On the other hand, I was exposing a truth that Daniel had kept hidden his entire life. I was dragging his memory through the mud. But I knew that Daniel would have understood. He had given me the tools to fight back. He had told me to protect myself, to protect our home. He had given me his blessing. The final blow came a few weeks later. Vincent sent me a copy of a letter he had received from Richard Sterling's lawyers. The senator, it seemed, was getting nervous. He had seen the rumors in the press. He had heard the whispers. He knew that his secret was in danger of being exposed. His lawyers had offered a settlement. They wanted to make the whole thing go away. They were willing to pay millions to keep the truth hidden. I refused the settlement. I knew that accepting money from Richard Sterling would be the same as betraying Daniel. It would be the same as letting his father get away with the abandonment and the hypocrisy. It would be the same as letting Evelyn win. I wanted justice, not money. The scandal finally broke in a major newspaper. The story was a front-page sensation with a headline that blared: "Billionaire Businessman's Secret Son and the Battle for a Family Home." The article was long, detailed, and devastating. It traced the story from the beginning: the young woman abandoned by a rich man, the son given up for adoption, the mother-in-law who tried to steal the son's house, and the widow who fought back. Richard Sterling's name was mentioned. Not directly, not with absolute proof, but in enough detail that everyone knew who the article was talking about. The senator's office issued a denial, but it was too little, too late. The damage had been done. Evelyn's name was also mentioned. She was portrayed as the villain of the story, a grasping and greedy woman who had spent her entire life trying to control her son and his family. She was publicly humiliated. The elite circles she had so desperately wanted to be a part of turned their backs on her. I was the hero of the story, the underdog who had fought back and won, the widow who had protected her husband's legacy. It was the most surreal moment of my life. I had never wanted to be famous. I had never wanted to be in the spotlight. But I had to admit, it felt good to see Evelyn brought low. In the weeks following the scandal, Evelyn's life imploded. Her lawyers abandoned her. Her so-called friends disappeared. Her husband, Albert, who had always been a silent and distant figure in her life, finally had enough. He divorced her, citing irreconcilable differences. I heard later that he had been ashamed of her behavior, disgusted by her greed. Evelyn was left alone in her own personal hell. She moved to a smaller house in a less prestigious neighborhood. She had no money, no friends, no family. The life she had worked so hard to build was gone. I got my house back. The trust was dissolved and the property was transferred to me, but I didn't want it anymore. It had become a symbol of everything I had been through, everything I had lost. It was haunted by the memory of Daniel and the battle I had fought for him. I decided to sell it. I donated a portion of the proceeds to a charity that Patricia, Daniel's birth mother, had started. It was a foundation for unwed mothers, a place where young women could get the support and help they needed. It was Patricia's life's work, and I was proud to be a part of it. I never saw Evelyn again after that day in court, but I heard things. I heard that she had become a recluse, a lonely old woman who lived in her small house, shut off from the world. I heard that she spent her days watching television and drinking wine. I heard that she had become bitter and paranoid, unable to trust anyone. I didn't feel sorry for her. Pity is for people who deserve it. Evelyn had made her choices. She had spent her life pushing people away, trying to control them, trying to destroy anyone she saw as a threat. In the end, she had only destroyed herself. I found a new life for myself. I moved to a small coastal town, a place where nobody knew me, where I could start over. The town was beautiful and peaceful, with beaches and sunsets and friendly neighbors. I reconnected with my own family. My sister, who had always been my rock, came to visit me. We sat on the beach and talked for hours. She told me about her children, about her marriage, about her life. I told her about Daniel, about Evelyn, about everything. It was good to have someone to talk to. It was good to feel connected again. I also reconnected with Patricia. She came to visit me in the coastal town, and we sat at a little cafe by the sea, looking out at the water. She was a lovely woman, kind and warm, with Daniel's eyes. We shared stories about him. I told her about our life together, about our children, about the love we shared. She told me about her life. She told me about the years of loneliness and regret, the years spent wondering what had happened to her son. She told me about the moment she had finally tracked him down, the moment she had seen him for the first time, the moment she had realized that he had grown up to be a good man, a kind man. It was a bittersweet conversation. There was a lot of sadness, a lot of regret, but there was also a lot of joy. We had both loved Daniel, we had both lost him, and we had both found each other. We became close. She became a kind of mother to me, the mother I had never had. She was everything Evelyn had never been, warm, supportive, loving. She accepted me without judgment. She loved me without conditions. The house, in the end, was just a house. It was brick and wood and mortar. It was the foundation of our marriage and the stage for our happiness. But it was also a burden, a symbol of everything I had been through. When I sold it, I felt a sense of relief. I let go of the past. I let go of the anger and the pain. I let go of Evelyn and all the years of suffering. Daniel's true legacy was not the house. It was the truth. It was the love we had shared. It was the family we had built. The truth set me free. It set Patricia free. And it finally, irrevocably, silenced Evelyn's triumphant laugh for good. I'm standing on the balcony of my new home. It's a small apartment with a beautiful view of the ocean. The salt air is filling my lungs. I'm feeling lighter than I have in years. I'm thinking about Daniel. I'm thinking about Patricia. I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about the life I've built for myself. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not a survivor. I'm something else. I'm a woman who has found her strength. I'm a woman who has found her peace. The story is over, but for me, it is just the beginning. A new beginning built on the ruins of an old, bitter war. A beginning I earned every step of the way. My mother-in-law laughed as I signed away my home in court. She never knew the truth. She never knew that I had been planning my revenge for months. She never knew that every tear I shed in that courtroom was a tear of joy, not sorrow. She never knew that her victory was my victory, her triumph my trap. She laughed, but in the end, I had the last laugh. I'm Amelia. I'm 52 years old. I'm a widow, a mother, a friend, and I am finally free. The town I live in now is called Harbor's End. It's a small place, the kind of town where everyone knows everyone else. When I first arrived, I was a stranger. But over time, I became part of the community. I volunteer at the local library, helping children learn to read. I join a book club. I take walks on the beach every morning. I've made friends. I've built a life. It's not the life I imagined. It's not the life Daniel and I had planned together, but it's a good life, a peaceful life, a life filled with love and purpose. I think about Daniel often. I think about the life we shared. I think about the love we had. I still miss him. I still grieve for him, but the grief is no longer overwhelming. It's a soft ache, a quiet reminder of the joy we shared. I know he would be proud of me. I know he would be happy to see me building a new life, finding new happiness. I also think about Patricia. We talk on the phone every week. We visit each other when we can. She's the mother I never had. She's the anchor I needed. I think about Evelyn too, not often, but sometimes. I hear things. I hear that she's alone. I hear that she's bitter. I hear that she's unhappy. I don't feel sorry for her. I don't feel angry at her. I just feel nothing. She's no longer a part of my life. She's no longer a part of my story. The story of my life is not defined by Evelyn. It's not defined by the house. It's defined by the love I shared with Daniel, the strength I found within myself, and the peace I've built in the aftermath. I remember the day I found out about Daniel's adoption. It was a few months before he died. He had been sick for a while, and we both knew the end was coming. He called me into his study one evening. He looked tired and frail, but there was a light in his eyes, a determination I hadn't seen in weeks. "Amelia," he said, "I need to tell you something. I need to tell you the truth." I sat down beside him and took his hand. "What is it, my love?" He told me everything. He told me about Patricia. He told me about Richard Sterling. He told me about the trust and the secret deal. He told me about the letter he had written. "I've been carrying this secret for years," he said. "I was afraid to tell you. I was afraid of how you would react, but I can't die without you knowing. I can't leave you without giving you the truth." I held him as he cried. I held him as he told me the story of his life. I held him as he apologized for the pain he had caused. "You have nothing to apologize for," I told him. "You didn't do anything wrong. You were the victim in all of this. You didn't choose any of it." He shook his head. "I chose to keep it a secret. I chose to let my mother think she had won. I chose to let her believe that she was in control. I was weak, Amelia. I was a coward." "You were not weak," I said fiercely. "You were strong. You were strong to survive. You were strong to love me. You were strong to tell me the truth." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with tears. "I'm leaving you the truth," he said. "I'm leaving you the power to fight back. I know my mother. I know what she'll do when I'm gone. She'll try to take everything from you. She'll try to destroy you. But if you have the truth, you can fight back. You can protect yourself. You can win." "I don't want to fight her," I said. "I just want to live my life in peace." He smiled a sad smile. "I know, and that's why I love you. You're a good person, Amelia, a kind person, but sometimes kindness isn't enough. Sometimes you have to fight, and I know you can. I've seen your strength. I've felt your strength. You're the strongest person I've ever known." I leaned down and kissed his forehead. "I'll fight," I said. "I'll fight for us. I'll fight for our home. I'll fight for the truth." The day Daniel died was the worst day of my life. He passed away in his sleep, surrounded by the people who loved him. I held his hand as he took his last breath. I whispered words of love and comfort. I watched the light fade from his eyes. I was devastated. I was heartbroken. I was consumed by grief. But even in my grief, I remembered his words. I remembered the promise I had made. I would fight. I would protect our home. I would protect the truth. In the weeks after Daniel's death, Evelyn began her campaign. She started with small things. She questioned the will. She questioned the validity of Daniel's signature. She questioned my motives. Then she escalated. She hired lawyers. She filed legal challenges. She tried to have me declared incompetent. I was too grief-stricken to fight back. I was drowning in sorrow. I couldn't muster the energy to defend myself. But I remembered Daniel's letter. I remembered the truth he had given me. I remembered the power I had. I reached out to Vincent. I reached out to Patricia. I started building my case. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led me to this moment. I thought about my life with Daniel. I thought about the moments of joy and the moments of sorrow. I thought about the love we had shared. I thought about Evelyn. I thought about the years of subtle poison, the constant criticism, the way she had made me feel small and inadequate. I thought about the letter. I thought about the truth Daniel had given me. I thought about the power I had to fight back. And I felt a strange sense of peace. I was ready. I was ready to fight. I was ready to win. The trial was a nightmare. Evelyn's lawyers were ruthless. They questioned everything. They attacked my character. They tried to make me look like a gold digger, a manipulator, a liar. I stayed calm. I stayed focused. I let them do their worst. When it was my turn to take the stand, I told the truth. I told the story of my marriage to Daniel. I told the story of our love. I told the story of Evelyn's cruelty. I didn't mention the letter. I didn't mention the trust. I didn't mention Richard Sterling. I was playing the long game. I was letting Evelyn believe she had won. The day of the ruling, I walked into the courtroom with my head held high. I knew what was coming. I knew I was about to lose the house. I knew Evelyn was about to have her victory. But I also knew what would come next. I knew the trust would be activated. I knew the truth would come out. I knew Evelyn was about to experience the biggest fall of her life. When the judge announced his decision, I didn't flinch. I signed the document without a tremor. I let Evelyn's laugh wash over me like water off a duck's back. I had already won. I just had to wait for the world to realize it. And now, looking back, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I fought. I'm glad I won. The revenge was sweet, but it was the redemption that really mattered. The redemption of finding my strength. The redemption of building a new life. The redemption of reconnecting with Patricia and finding a new family. I'm not the same woman I was when I walked into that courtroom. I'm stronger. I'm wiser. I'm free. The laugh that Evelyn used as a weapon all those years has been silenced. The woman who tried to destroy me has been destroyed herself, and I am standing tall, ready to face whatever comes next. My mother-in-law laughed as I signed away my home in court. She never knew the truth. She never knew that I was about to turn her greatest victory into her greatest defeat. She never knew that I had Daniel on my side, that his love had given me the strength to fight back. She never knew that the laugh she used to hurt me would be the very thing that brought her down. Now she knows. Now she understands. Now she lives with the consequences of her choices. And I am finally free, free from the past, free from the pain, free from Evelyn. I stand on my balcony looking out at the ocean and I smile. The sun is setting. The sky is a riot of orange and red. The world is beautiful. Daniel would have loved it. Daniel would have loved this moment, this peace, this joy. I take a deep breath and let the salt air fill my lungs. I am Amelia. I am a survivor. I am free. And that is my story.